ओम पवित्रं चरितं यस्याः पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु श्रद्धारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। Salutations at the holy feet of Divine Almighty. Good morning to one and all who have assembled here, taking a very active part in this webinar. My pranams to Brahmalina Pujya Shri Dr. Shivakumar Mahaswamiji, who happened to be a perennial source of inspiration to the galaxy of monks of this great country. My respectful pranams to Pujya Shri Siddhalinga Mahaswamiji, the Chief Pontiff of world-renowned Shri Siddhaganga Math, Tumkur. My namaskars to a luminary, a great visionary and an educationalist, Dr. M. N. Channabasappaji. My respects to Principal Dr. Dinesh Kumar, the Chief Executive Officers, Shri Dr. Shivakumaraya, and all the professors and lecturers of this esteemed institution. My respects to all the fraternity of teaching belonging to this institution, and namaskars to all the viewers of today's program. It is really worth mentioning about the great task our Siddhaganga Institute of Technology Management has successfully taken up, that is conducting a faculty development program in joint venture with Atal scheme of AICTE New Delhi, and the subject of this faculty development program is the title being Recent Advances in Management, Processing and Processing of Industrial and Domestic Wastes. I thank and appreciate the efforts of our Chemical Engineering Department of SIT for accepting this task and making it a success. Especially Dr. Murthy Shekhar, Dr. Rajshekhar, Dr. Sudhir Hulikal, and Sister Dr. Purnima Hiremat. It is really fascinating to know that even though the webinar is mainly based on educating the society on the topic of processing the industrial and domestic, how to manage the industrial and domestic wastes. And my topic of today's discussion is your work defines you and you define your nation. As Sister Purnima rightly said, this is a spiritual session, a session meant for educating our fellow beings in the matter of ethics. When I started thinking over this beautiful topic, at the outset I thought, yes, we have a galaxy of professors who have been invited to this webinar to talk on the management of industrial and domestic wastes. And I have been asked to speak about the wastage of human personality, the impurities in human character, and the beautiful process of channelizing, motivating, and energizing the youth power, the human power at large. So, this is quite an interesting topic to be dealt with, and I'm very happy to share my thoughts with all my fellow beings. My dear friends, we have 2-3 most important words, the captions in this topic. Work is one of the most, nation is the second word, and how can you represent yourself as an excellent bridge in between? At the outset, let us have a serious thought about the history of human beings from time immemorial. We all know much about the Stone Age. We know the beautiful story of our civilizations, of the human dynasty in general. And at every point of human history, beyond doubt, it has been proved very effectively that the civilizations or the societies, they could survive only on the foundation of universal truths and not merely on the ethnic values of the individual society. Because these ethnic values are not universal in their nature. That is why, even though the world has observed a greater degree of ups and downs in human history, it is really fascinating and worth studying about our Indian civilization, which, in spite of so many invasions, with so much of even foreign administration, the Holy Land of India could preserve its cultural value, the spiritual stuff, and thereby, even today, India has become the Jagat Guru in very many aspects to guide the world at large. We are all in the field of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is one of the 4 yogas which exercises, which exactly encourages man to be of greater help to the society at large. Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga they have maximum opportunity for the human being to develop individually into an institution. But this Karma Yoga, which deals with the pattern of work, the scheme of work, the scope of work, the necessity of work, the divinity of work, and ultimately the spiritual value of the work done, these are all the things. And to fulfill all such conditions, ultimately it is Karma Yoga that helps man to be of some use to the humanity. Keeping this in mind, the ancient rishis of India, in Chandogya Upanishad, they beautifully proclaimed like this: Yadeva vidyaya karoti shraddhaya upanishada tadeva viryavattaram bhavati. Before going to explain this shloka, I mean to say the utterance of Chandogya, I want to quote Vishwaguru Sri Shankara Bhagavatpada of 8th century AD, who beautifully defines the three fortunes every human being is blessed with. Durlabham trayame vaitat daivanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshayaha. Manushyatva, we may look like human beings in the outer nature, in our physical features. But Manushyatva differs from Manushya. Manushya is the physical stature. Manushyatva is the quality he is blessed with, the qualities he has developed in his personality. Mumukshutva is his line of thinking is not confined just to earn 2 meals a day, just to keep himself contented with respect to the worldly pleasures. Rather, Mumukshutva recommends every human being to think of a greater level of aspirations to be developed in life, a greater level of living. That is most important. That is why even the psychiatrists and psychologists of recent times, they have, with great conviction, they have proved that a country can be raised only by raising the minds of the people rather than confining itself just to raise the roofs of the buildings. We may raise the roofs to a great height, but do you think people flying, people traveling by air, do you think their intellect is also very high? You might have observed, and very frequently you observe, that the terrorists will take over the flights, they develop control over the whole system, they threaten the nations to which all the citizens traveling belong to. And finally, even terrorism is rampant in air also. So that's why mumukshutvam is a very great virtue. That means to say, we must have longing for higher level of truth in our life. That is something like, we must think beyond self. We should not confine to self-centered aspect of life. It should be beyond ourself. It is mumukshutvam. Mahapurusha samshayaha is the third aspect Shankara beautifully defines, which means to say, how to develop a life of values, how to develop the pattern, the nature of doing good work, good deeds, that can be achieved more and more by associating ourselves with people of spiritual temperament, or by going through the spiritual literature. So, these three are very, very important, but very rare in human society. Shankaracharya says, if you have the special blessings of the Creator, then only you can have Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, and Mahapurusha Samshayaha. Manushyatva is ultimately the good character of a human being, the behavioral attitude, the good nature of any individual for that matter. Mumukshutva is, we should not confine ourselves only to the worldly needs. We must find another strata which is beyond the sensual pleasures, something like that. And Mahapurusha Samshayaha is another beautiful blessing of God, where we will have the company, the satsang of very learned, very pious, very humble, and people of great vision too. So now I am entering to Yadeva Vidyaya Karoti Shraddhaya Upanishada Tadeva Viryavattaram Bhavati. This is an utterance of Chandogya Upanishad, which says, what is done with knowledge, what is done with conviction, and what is done with meditation will alone achieve maximum energy and efficiency. This is the secret of our success in the field of work. There are 100 mindsets in the field of work. I may induct myself into a system as a slave. I may serve the industry or the institution for a few decades. I may retire as a slave with experience of few decades. This is one pattern. Another pattern is, even though I got inducted into the system as a slave, as the most ordinary labor of the society, by working hard, by gaining more and more experience for the good of my upcoming in my future years, and remaining trustworthy to the system at large, remaining loyal and obedient to the administration, slowly I could ascend the ladder of success, and finally, at one point of time in my service, I could achieve, I could accelerate my speed, and I could elevate myself to a most prominent post of the institution. So again, here also, you come across the beautiful, more or less, the research process in the transformation of a human being from the stage of an individual to the stage of an institution. Raw material becoming a good finished good. See, this is the beauty of this utterance of the Chandogya Upanishad. And very much compared to this, I can quote the words of Alvin Toffler from his book, The Power Shift. He beautifully says, history is created not by selfish majority, but by unselfish, creative minority. Very beautiful. History is created only by unselfish, creative minority people of this society. It is not a gift of the selfish majority of this society. So, here and there, in these utterances, we can easily identify that the nation is as a result of an individual. An individual is as a result of the scheme, the pattern of work, what he is rendering in his day-to-day life till his demise from this world. We may say we have to work for an institution for a few decades. But my dear friends, it is my earnest request, it's my sincere request to all of you that you should determine to serve the humanity, the society at large, till our last breath. See, serving an institution may fulfill our day-to-day needs, may provide us some pleasure in our individual lives and family life, but ultimately our commitment should not only with respect to the ethical fabric of the institution, and more it should be committed to our internal conscience, our conscious, I must say, Atmam in Vedantic terminology. So, here it is very much required for every individual to know that he need not go on trying to please the external world. Rather, he must have the self-contentment. His Atmasakshi, his conscious, must always say that he is doing something good. He is doing something good, which is termed as Atmonnati in Sanskrit. Atmonnati. And when we study the age of globalization of today, it is quite evident that technology and modern movements like the globalization and liberalization, it has given a radical new course of life to the individual and to the society. It has created a social environment which was never before. This is really a very fascinating aspect. Today, here and there we find the friction between our ancient traditional values and emerging new values of modern life. Yes, it has led to cultural fermentation for that matter. Yes, we do have benefits from cultural fermentation. To quote a few, number one, it gives fresh ideas and perception about life. It's true. Secondly, it is changing our attitude of life and it is redefining our social relationships. But at the same time, the negative aspects of this cultural fermentation is quite alarming. Because of this fermentation, people have started neglecting their cultural fabric, the ethical and spiritual values which were highly respected in their individual societies. Secondly, at the same time, we should know that spirituality characterizes our culture, and we should know that only on the fabric of spirituality our civilization could survive for thousands of years. Thirdly, it is an alarming caution for all of us to know that by sidelining the moral, cultural, and spiritual values in the society, it ultimately results in increase of corruption, crime, exploitation, and strife. Another most negative development of this cultural fermentation is our younger generation in today's society. They are growing up without the stabilized force of spirituality. Morality and spirituality, it is figuring very, very less in the dreams of the society, in the dreams of success and happiness. If you ask any person, what is the goal of your life? He says, I have great dreams of success and happiness. If you ask him, how can you achieve? Very rarely you come across few people who say, morality and spirituality are very much required to make my dreams fulfilled and to see success and happiness in my life. Yes, every individual needs freedom. It is right, as Swami Vivekananda rightly said, freedom is the first step of growth. It's true. But at the same time, freedom of choice may be a great gift of globalization. This freedom of choice must help us to realize our responsibility of making good choice. That's why it is said, the secret of life depends on the matter of choice. But the toughest thing in anybody's life is choice only. So keeping this in mind, wherever we work, at whatever capacity we may render our services, as Swami Vivekananda rightly said, the problems are understandably many, but the solution is one. That is, the present man must become a new man of moral, ethical, and spiritual dimensions. This is most important. So then only we can have our karma transformed into karma yoga, I, being a labor, transforming myself into a yogi, and ultimately my nation, my country, becoming a Punya Bhumi, a Jagat Guru in its truest sense. Yes, we do know the technical advancements. It has helped the world to have the physical expression of globalization. When we study the external world, when we study the human world, it is really fascinating to know that every human being has to study three important sciences to make his life more meaningful rather than more successful. As Albert Einstein rightly said, more than a life of success, I respect a life of values. So, how to make our life a valued life, a life of values? At this juncture, we must keep in our mind that there is an ocean of difference between value of life and value of living. Cost of life and values of life. We have to give a serious thought on these most important aspects. At this juncture, we must insist for globalization of ideas also. How to do that? Yes, physically man may be limited, but spiritually he is unlimited. Man is universal spiritually. So to realize this, he has to march forward in different aspects of his own personality. To quote, the first one is the physical science. By studying physical science, he can know the physical nature in which he is living. He can study the nature at large. Even he can understand the physical nature of his own body. Studying the external nature, understanding the forces acting in the external nature, and controlling the forces for the good of man, all these are studied under the caption, the physical science. Second one is the science of values. You can take it for granted that it is something like the social values. Man is a social animal, as we all know. There is a higher science which helps us to deal with the fellow beings in the society. Whenever I address the students in universities, I address them as my dear fellow students. The truth is, I am also a student. Even at the age of 56, even after 34 years of my graduation, every day I am developing greater urge, a greater longing, craving for gaining knowledge. So man is a student till his last breath. Education cannot be confined to only university learning. It is a part of our life education. It is not the be-all and end-all of our education. We must know that. Finally, it is the spiritual science. Spiritual science makes every man to know that he is Atman, and the same Atman is dwelling in every individual. More and more I understand the spiritual aspect of my life. There will be no more corruption, no more cheating, no more betraying people, because my own Atman is getting reflected in his personality also. We may be physically different, but the uniqueness is the Atman, the conscious. That is why great physicists, Nobel laureates, they declared that consciousness is singular and it can never be plural. Even the Big Bang Theory, the modern physics researchers, they have beautifully defined that consciousness is never a plural, but it is singular. The people may differ in their external physical nature, but the same conscious, the conscience, is experienced when we thoroughly understand and digest the aspects of spiritual science. So these three sciences have to be studied by each and every individual. Then only majority of the impurities in our personality will get vanished. It will get eradicated from our personalities. We have to study the external world, the forces which are controlling us, and can we really control such forces out of our own wish and our own effort is the physical science. Science of values is again how to develop beautiful relationship, a meaningful ethical relationship with the fellow beings of the society. And finally, why should I remain good? Why should I do only good deeds? To answer such questions, because each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity. Each soul is potentially divine. You may have 700 crore people all over the world belonging to a few hundred countries. But at the same time, the Atman dwelling in every individual is the same universal Atman. Every human being is the finite expression of the infinite universal spirit. So the next aspect of my talk is, let us study what great minds could shed light on the society to have better guidance, to make their lives more meaningful. We very frequently come across a word faith. Faith. Many a times, we don't find the difference between faith and belief. I started believing a person after a few years. He proved himself worthy to be believed, and finally, I could develop faith in him, and we remain faithful to each other. So believing or not believing will be the first step. More and more we start believing the people, and by acquiring the positive results of that, finally it will end up with remaining faithful mutually. That is important. Leo Tolstoy, a great thinker of Russia, once he said, faith is the force whereby we live. If man does not believe that he must live for something, he would not live at all. So faith is a must in everybody's life. That is most important. Swami Vivekananda says, faith in God, and faith in ourselves is the only secret of our success. How to develop this faith? Swamiji gives a beautiful formula. Take up one idea, make this idea your entire life. Think of it, dream of it. Let every blood cell of your body reverberate with this wonderful idea. Leave the rest aside. This is the secret of success. So again, it is a matter of faith. And it is also a journey of faith too. When we study the human psychology, at every point of human history, we observe that man is always moving from lower truth to higher truth. Man doesn't want to remain a failure in society or family. He wants to have a success of his own choice. He wants to have the story of success ladder to his credit. For that, he has got his own variety of ways to fight for the success. Abraham Maslow, a great human psychologist, he has logically drawn 10 most important aspects required for any individual to achieve the greater heights in the ladder of success. He says, you must be reality centered. We must be reality centered. Otherwise, if I become a hypocrite, definitely I cannot achieve the success in an ethical way. Hypocrisy ultimately makes a man a cunning fox, I must say. Even many a times, diplomacy is not the ultimate virtue. This reality-centered aspect in anybody's life is the need of the hour. We must be very realistic in our attitude. We must know where we are. We must know what are the things available for us. And let us begin from beginning. When you respect the word comparison, it should be respected in these two important aspects. Number one, I must compare myself of today with myself what I was a few days, few months, few years back. And in this comparison, if I find an elevation in the growth, an improvement in my life, that speaks about the success. But at the same time, if at all, if I want to compare myself with others, it should never end up with discouraging words or some discouraging concluding words. Because I must compare myself with a person of greater achievement, and as much as possible, I must do to the best of my ability to follow such great souls and great achievers. That is why in spiritual science, all our gurus insist us to be in the company of holy people. That is very important. Any institution run by a spiritual pontiff is highly benefited because the spiritual tinge, the spiritual fervor, the spiritual environment, knowingly or unknowingly, will get percolated into every individual working under the umbrella of this spirituality. That great aspect we find in SIT because it is the greatest gift of most revered Shivakumar Mahaswamiji to the world of technology of our country. The alumni of SIT are spread worldwide. They have occupied very important positions in the world in different capacities, and they have proved their worth. And at every point of time, they are proving that they have been trained by an institution which is under the umbrella of spirituality. Second aspect what Abraham Maslow recommends for is accepting the self and others. We must have self-respect. We should never belittle ourselves. At the same time, we must respect other people with whom we are moving at every point of our life. Whether family people, office colleagues, or people working in the society with us. So always we have to accept the self. In the midst of people, we should not belittle our capacity. We should not underestimate our capacity. At the same time, we must respect the capacity of others. And not just by words, if possible, by our hard work, we must be in a position to follow the pattern of working of the achievers of our society. I was mentioning about the influence of spiritual pontiffs on an institution. Our Guru, Swami Purushottamananda ji, very many times used to quote the words of Swami Turiyananda, the direct disciple of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Turiyananda ji used to tell his disciples and his students, try to be in the company of holy people. Please go through the spiritual literature. If holy company is not possible for you, try to think about the holy people who are guiding you, because mind controls mind. It is an excellent psychological conviction that more and more we think about our nears and dears, naturally, unexplainable way of influence from the counterpart, the other people about whom we are thinking, will have an impact on our individual personality also. The third aspect is oriented towards problem solving rather than ego. Many institutions suffer not because of lack of material resource, not because of lack of natural resources, not because of lack of staff, but only because of the lack of the art of ego management. Ego management is the toughest thing. We must be always concentrate in the direction of solving the problems rather than developing our unripe ego in a very unhealthy scale. Many a times, even though we are potentially enough to guide people to do good things, our ego will come in the way. It becomes a very big obstacle so that we cannot communicate with other people freely, and ultimately our ego will ruin us. For that, Maslow says, we must always orient towards problem solving rather than protecting our ego. Unripe ego is different from self-respect. The fourth aspect he mentions about is be spontaneous. Don't be lethargic. Fifth is be creative. Don't worry about the mistakes you may commit in course of working. Have the good intention of doing good. And even if you commit mistakes, it is not intentional. So be very creative. Next aspect is appreciation of solitude. Generally, we will be very happy in the midst of people. We will be more happy in the midst of those people who always admire us for reasons or for no reasons. But to remain very calm and peaceful in solitude is also a very great character, is a great nature of an individual. At this time, at this juncture, we must know there is an ocean of difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is a spiritual virtue. You read in your newspapers, you observe in our visual media also, loneliness has created more psychological problems, psychiatric problems in this society. But when you read the spiritual experiences of the great gurus, they will say, try to enjoy solitude. In solitude, you will realize that God alone is with you. All your nears and dears of the external society, the social world, the secular world, the family world, at one point of time, nobody is with you. A spiritual pontiff will always guide a person. You alone have to fight. You came alone to this world when you were born, and you alone will get rid of the world when your time is over. But you should know, nobody at some point of time, you will have nobody with you to fight and to march further. And the spiritual pontiffs cautions us that in darkness, even not your shadow will be with you. See what a critical analysis the spiritual science is putting forth. In darkness, even our shadow is not available. We have to fight singularly, individually, and that is why it is said, we must develop longing for even the solitude life. The solitude life also must keep us happy and comfortable. The next aspect is resistant to social pressures. When you observe a system, when you observe an institution, even it is really astonished to see good people committing silly mistakes and blunders. When you ask them, they are really prompt in their reply. They say, sir, even though I did not intend to do that, I did this because of the external pressures, the social pressures. You just imagine our Honorable Prime Minister Ji today, a true Rajarshi. See, in spite of so many unwanted comments about his working pattern from nook and corner of the country, if anything wrong happens in any nook and corner of the country, immediately people will target at him. If any elections are defeated, he will say, people will start telling that slowly he is losing the credential and faith of the people. And if there is any success in the country, people will immediately start telling that this is not the success of today. 25 years back, our leaders, they did the sowing, and today we are enjoying the fruits. Fruits cannot come all of a sudden. See, all such things we are observing today. That too in a developing country like India, which had enjoyed slavery for a few centuries. This is ultimately the mindset, and we cannot expect anything more than this at this time, the present time. So with all that, whatever may be the social pressures, if I am intending to do only the good things, the first and the foremost thing, what I have to inculcate is to answer less, reply as less as possible to the words of all the people who want to find a place more in the media rather than in the work field, the field of work, I mean. The next point is capable of intimate personal relationships. Man is a social animal, as I told in the beginning. We have to live in a society. We have to work unitedly. But at that time, we must always keep in our mind that a minimum of certain degree of social relationship is a must for the survival of the system. See, living among the ordinary people is a must. And making ourselves out of our effort extraordinary out of the ordinary lot is a challenge before us. Next is ready to learn from anyone, no matter how humble, and to have. So if there is any necessity of learning from anybody, whether he is my assistant, he is my group D employee in my office, He may be my officer, he may be my neighbor, he may be my colleague, he may be the person living in my extension, the same extension where I live. See, I must prioritize. I must give priority to learning rather than commenting on something like, he is my assistant. How can I learn from him? It is not good on my part. It is a matter of shame. I need not learn from him. See, this is very important psychological aspect in a working environment. And we must be very careful because it is very sensitive and sensible also. For that, we must be in a position to accept what is good in the society. To discriminate this good and bad is a great virtue. Once we discriminate this, and more, if at all, if we want to develop the good things, we must always respect the people who have already achieved this deed and who have made this goodness as a feature of their personality. Finally, he says, mystic experience. Mystic experience is something like what I said as the words of Swami Turiyanandaji. Try to be in the company of holy people, study the spiritual books, and by doing so, more and more you think about the great virtues. Mind controls mind. Naturally, you will have a greater confidence in accepting bigger challenges and fighting for the cause. Swami Vivekananda, who traveled along the length and width of the country for more than 7 years, he was a great humanist, a great human psychologist, and he says, teach yourselves, teach everyone his real nature. Teach yourselves, teach everyone his real nature. What is the real nature? Each soul is potentially divine. Then what will be the output? Swamiji continues, call upon the sleeping soul. While you start teaching everyone about his real nature, you will start calling upon the sleeping soul. And he says, see how it awakes. How it awakes. Power will come, glory will come, goodness will come, and everything that is excellent will come when the sleeping soul is roused to its absolute activity. In the beginning, I was mentioning about what should be the relationship of us with the society. See, in the outer world, we may think that we have to work for an institution for a few decades. But ultimately, the ultimate truth I must say is, I have to work all through my life, maybe at different capacities. In the beginning, I may be blessed with more physical energy, supported by my mental and intellectual strata. But as my age advances, in the second half of my life, I may not be in a position to work physically so much what I did in the first half, but at that time, all my capacities get supplemented with my experience, what I could earn all these years, and I have to work till my last breath. We have seen great souls like Swami Shivakumara Mahaswamiji, who worked till his age 112 years. We have seen Saram Vishweshwaraya, who lived for 100 years. We have seen so many great people. Swami Vivekananda, who worked till his last breath. We have seen great luminaries like Basaveshwara, Bhagavan Buddha. Great souls who worked till their last breath. So this is Karma Yoga. More and more we love our work. more and more we want to make our work a yoga. We have to surrender ourselves to this pattern of moral and ethical working. This is most important. John D. Rockefeller, the founder of Rockefeller Foundation, he was influenced and motivated by Swami Vivekananda and jumped into the world of charity. And today, Rockefeller Foundation is a very big name in United States of America. They supported the cause of the education for the American blacks. They supported the educational cause, the social cause of uplifting the common people of the society. They also supported the research work in the field of science and technology. And people who could get the financial assistance from this institution, the foundation, could successfully do the research and get Nobel Prize, to quote one, Norman Borlaug. See, that's a big story. To know more about this, we can go to Google and get plenty of information. This man, John D. Rockefeller, he was influenced by Swami Vivekananda, and slowly he started feeling that the whole society is his own, and the pains and pleasures of every individual in the society is his own. Finally, he started serving the society, and in his autobiography, he has beautifully mentioned his experience with his great guru, Swami Vivekananda. At one point of time, he writes like this: there is more to life than mere accumulation of money. Money is only a trust in one's hand. To use our own money improperly, is a great sin. Our own money. To use our own money improperly is a great sin. The best way to prepare for the end of our life is to live for others. That is what I am trying to do. This is the greatest lesson I could learn from the yogi of India, Swami Vivekananda. See, Rockefeller's words are eye-opening. At this juncture, every educated man must realize that money is just a trust in one's hand. Our own money, it may be our own money. But we must know, even improper way of using our own money is unethical and suicidal. Very unfortunately, you come across so many youngsters, so many entrepreneurs, so many people in this society who earn lakhs and lakhs per month, but they doesn't know how to spend it morally and ethically. They will have a flat in different cities of the countries, the world. They will have quite a good number of vehicles to use on alternate days in a week. They will have everything except peace, because more and more they earn, less and less they become socially oriented and socially committed. This is the greatest modern problem of globalization. We are very much witnessing it at every point of time, every minute in our day-to-day society life. So for that, please go through the words of John D. Rockefeller. He says, mere accumulation of money is not the end of life, or is not the only aim of life. We are just the trustees to our property. Even improper use of our own assets and financial resources is a great sin, he says. The best way to prepare for the end of our life is to develop the culture of serving others, the fellow beings of our society. By doing so, we will have contentment in life. We will be truly the universal Atman as proclaimed by Vedanta. So with regard to the working atmosphere, we must have certain aspects to be honored at every point of our life. To quote a few, we should know both discrimination and renunciation to the liberation. We need not work like a donkey. We must develop that work culture slowly in the process of learning. Once a candidate in the pre-elections was denied a ticket to contest. He was a popular man in that party, political party I mean. The very next day, as usual, you come across, irrespective of the party, if people are not given proper positions, given proper portfolio, all their intentions within will burst out. It happened like that in this instance also, when he was denied a ticket to contest. Next day in the media, he appeared and started shouting against the president of the particular party, telling that our leader did not realize that I worked like a donkey for the party to develop. But my leader did not understand my hard work. Today I am very much disappointed because he denied me a ticket to contest in the forthcoming elections. He should know that I work day and night like a donkey for our party. That leader of the particular national party in the state was a very intelligent fellow. Next day he replied to the comment of his own partyman with his very polite and wise words. I saw in the media about the comments of my own fellow party person, my own fellow man in my party. He told that he was denied a ticket. He did not stop there itself. He said that he worked like a donkey for the party. Yes, I do agree that he worked like a donkey for the party. But I have strict instructions from my higher ups. They have instructed me only to choose the winning horses for the forthcoming elections. The winning horses should get the ticket in a proper way so that we will win over the elections and get the power back. These were the words of the party president. I appreciate the words of the president because how wise he is. So these things we must keep in our mind. See, working like a donkey or working like a horse. Why should you remain working like a donkey all through your life? Why can't you transform yourself into a horse? Why can't you elevate your pattern of working day by day by your hard work? Why can't you show your progress in a very positive way? Why there is no positive elevation, I mean, in your progress card? So for this, we must have the discrimination between what is good and what is bad. This is the first step. And at the same time, at any point of time, we must be in a position to accept the higher level of challenges by keeping the success of today aside. We should not get contented only with the present day's success. And you should not say that it's enough. Whatever I have achieved till date, it is enough. I don't want to try anymore. No, that is again stagnation. That leads to failure. Your faith is curbed. You are fighting against the odds, fighting for a great cause has come to stagnation. No, that should not be the case. Whatever you achieved today evening, it should be the best result till date. But for tomorrow, it should be the principal amount of our experience to achieve still greater heights in our pursuits. So for that, we must not only develop the degree of discrimination, at the same time, we must develop the degree of renunciation also. What is that renunciation? It is something like longing for still higher and higher levels of our pursuits. Secondly, banish your fear and weakness. In the working field, never weaken your mind by thinking of your past mistakes, if any. Sin exists only in humans' eye. God will never look at your sins. If He minds, one glance of His will wipe off all our sins of several previous births. So, failure is not end of life. It is a delayed success. It is more honorable to accept the defeat in the right path than trying for success through wrong means. This should be our individual commitment. Whatever may be the words of our higher-ups. More and more we are sincere, we are committed. You may have some opposition in the beginning, but slowly the whole environment will start respecting you, supporting you, honoring you. Stubbornness. This is another common factor we come across in our working institutions. It is a choke for weakness. Stubbornness is a choke for weakness. The weak wants to get the shelter of stubbornness to hide their mistakes. The real strength knows how to bend and at the same time how to regain our true position. Getting frightened about the punishment and then bending to the officer in front of him, or more frightened towards the ideals of my profession and getting myself engaged in more and more work so that I can correct my mistakes and do still more good work from tomorrow onwards. See, there are so many differences in the working pattern. In the matter of opinion, my dear friends, in the matter of opinion, please swim with the current. Please swim with the current. But in the matter of principle, opinion is a general word. In the matter of principle, you must stand like a rock. This is most important. In the society of opinion, be with the current. With respect to principle, you must be a very, very strong rock. The Psyche Beyond Doubt, it says, physical weakness leads to cunning, and at the same time, spiritual weakness leads to mystery, aspashtam in Sanskrit. So we must have the physical strength and spiritual strength. Then only we will be neither cunning nor an object of confusion in the midst of people. We are all familiar with the word dispassion. Dispassion can only help us to transform our unripe ego into ripe ego. More and more we develop dispassionate aspect with respect to our fellow beings in this society. Our love and faith gets fortified. This is most important. Many a times we proclaim that we must stand up on our own feet. We must become self-dependent. Generally we use the word, I want to stand on my own feet. This may be with respect to the science of the physical science and the science of values. This may be to a certain extent self-efficient and self-sufficient. But with respect to science of spirituality, this I is not the organic I or metabolic I, rather it is cosmic I. The cosmic I is universal. If I say, I want to stand up on my own feet, in the light of cosmic knowledge, it is something like, I want to look upon, I want to take care of the whole human society, whom we call as the Jagat Guru, the Vishwavandya, the Vishwamanava. These are all the Sanskrit terms. That refers to cosmic I. Our faith can benefit us only when we develop right knowledge and right reason to do right things at right time. See, these are all the things we must seriously consider during every moment of our life. The Vedantic Rishi says we must have lakshya, we must have dhruti, and we must develop sadhana to achieve success in life. These are all again the Sanskrit words. What is lakshya? Lakshya means the goal to be attained. The goal to be attained. We must be serious about the goal to be attained. Very unfortunately, very frequently I come across the heads of the institution visiting the ashram, complaining about the working section of their institutions. One head says, sir, we are paying lakhs and lakhs of rupees as salary, but very unfortunately, they are not committed to their work. They just work for a few hours. And if anything little more than what they are doing is entrusted, they become restless. They say, no, I can't do. I don't have time. I have my own assignments. Why do you compel me to do extra work? I am supposed to do this much of work only. This is what you have given me in my appointment letter. Why do you insist me to do so many things? It is alarming today to see even the teachers and lecturers and professors refusing to participate in the refresher courses, the educational colloquiums, the workshops conducted by great institutions, the government agencies, so on and so forth. The process of learning has reached static in teachers today. They don't have any special interest to study the new editions, new publications. They don't want to update their knowledge. They don't want to study the current affairs. They stick to only the old news, old notes, the cyclo-style notes. When we were engineering students, there was one store called Reddy Book House in Gandhi Bazaar. That was a very old store, and it was fascinating to see that you could get the cyclo-style copy of any subject of any university in the country in that Reddy Book House. If you go to Reddy Book House, you will get Roorkee University notes of any subject of any branch. You will get any university notes for that matter. So mere notes cannot make a lecturer a professor in due course. This is very unfortunate. We must keep in mind that learning process will keep us always hale and healthy, and more we update our knowledge. That speaks about the beautiful elevation of our own life. It need not be a compulsion from the departmental head or principals that we must attend such programs. No. It should be out of our own wish. And this is one thing. Today's teaching faculty, it is really alarming. They have lost interest in learning new things. And secondly, a person who is paid lakhs and lakhs of rupees will be watched by a security guard at the entrance of the institution. Very unfortunate. The moment this gentleman who is getting lakhs of rupees salary, if he leaves the campus before the scheduled time, then the security guard will make a note of that. This security guard is getting 10 to 15,000 rupees per month. And he is noting down a teacher, an unethical teacher, he is not prompt in his working, who is getting 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh rupees a month. See, this is a very, very painful situation that is prevailing in this society today. The biometry is the measure of our sincerity and time sense. We are getting more salary, but we are not sincere and prompt to the most important value of time. We are not committed to our work. So this is the reason why in a country like India, whether people are aware of their responsibilities and duties properly or not, after 18 years of their age, they get inducted into the citizens list. Today, majority of the citizens in India find their names in voters list and ration cards, but not in the list of the citizens of greater responsibility. That is why citizen should not be declared, an individual should not be declared as a citizen only for the reason that he has crossed 18 years of age. Very unfortunate it is. And teachers, the perennial source of inspiration they must be. And more they study better, they do research, they can supply greatest human resource to different departments of the country. There is a beautiful saying, if you want to destroy a nation, you need not prepare atom bombs or nuclear weapons. Rather, You demoralize the teacher fraternity. You destroy the educational standards of a society that will ultimately result in destroying the country. So particularly the people of education field, we must keep in our mind that teachers must be greatly committed. We must be highly ethical and moral, so that if we do 100 good deeds, our students may do at least 10. Even if we do one bad deed, our children will do 100 times that, and ultimately it results in all chaos. My dear friends, Lakshya means the goal to be attained. The desire to attain that goal is what sustains all our further efforts. More and more I am committed to my goal, I can sustain my inspiration, my zestfulness to carry on my work. So, Lakshya is very important. Second is Dhruti, means determination. Determination is fueled by the memory of our Lakshya and our energies to reach it. Finally, sadhana, it is the practice. These three things are very important, and they ultimately results in the personality of every individual to achieve something very great in our life. If we have only the desire to reach a goal, but no determination or practice, our desire will only remain a dream. I think now we can understand the importance of Lakshya. What is that? If we only have the desire to reach the goal, but no determination or practice, our desire will remain as a dream. If we are determined, that means to say, if we have the dhruti, but we are not aware of our goal and does not make any effort at all in our actions, we will grow in frustration. Finally, if we want to act without determination or an awareness of goal to be reached, it will be an aimless movement of our limbs. We may make efforts, but it will only serve to dissipate our energies, and it will not yield anything more. So for that, Lakshya, Dhruti and Sadhana are very important. These will define us. These works of ours, the duties of ours will define us. Ultimately, we define our nation by that. And wherever we do our administration as head of a section or a unit in our institutions, we must always keep in our mind that our administration must be transparent. Secrecy will not be good always. Many a times, secrecy breeds evil. Second point, as a leader, you should never take any decision under any kind of pressures. The decision should be taken only in the interest of the public. Public interest is a must. Third one, when we go to work, We must leave behind all the labels like the caste, the community, the religion, the language, so on and so forth. We come across so many slogans in the lectures on platforms that we must develop a caste-less society, so on and so forth. But very unfortunately, the people who speak more about the abolition of caste and to develop a casteless society have end up as the people who do casteism to the very great extent. We have very many examples to prove that. Corruption must be ruthlessly punished. This is very important. When government is feeding us, when it has taken care of us by fulfilling all our needs, again, in spite of that, if I start doing corruption, I am really going against the ideals of the institution and the country at large. That is not at all required. To end up, I want to quote the words, the great words of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita and Chanakya's Arthashastra are considered to be the greatest texts for management. I was in the United States, I was in 8 countries of Europe, visited so many universities. Out of my own interest, I interacted with the people of different departments. And it was really fascinating to know that more than 25 countries of European continent, the Europe continent, they have Bhagavad Gita and Kautilya's Arthashastra as the reference books, prominent reference books for management subject. I saw it in Turin University, Genova University, in many universities for that matter. And it is an eye-opening. It should be an eye-opening for Indian universities too. See, the 10 principles of work ethics recommended by Bhagavad Gita are very simple and very straightforward. The first principle, what Gita says is, responsibilities and privileges always go hand in hand. More and more you feel yourself responsible, you are a person of responsibility, privileges will come unsought. So be responsible. When you show more responsibility in your work, naturally, individually you will grow. Collectively you can supplement to the growth of the institution. And thereby you can become the cosmic eye in the truest sense, rather than an organic eye. The greater the responsibilities one undertakes, the greater the privileges one enjoys. This is the second principle of work recommended by Bhagavad Gita. Third one is to demand rights and privileges without discharging one's duties and responsibilities properly would be unethical and suicidal. Never think of only the duties and privileges without discharging the responsibilities properly. When a person discharges his responsibilities sincerely, privileges come to him unsought. We have to work without respite. We have to work always in the spirit of yajna, that is, without selfish motives. We have to learn to renew ourselves daily despite tensions and restlessness that are the characteristics of today's society. Yes, to become restless, to develop tension, that is order of the day. In our working atmosphere today, we come across tension and restlessness very frequently. But just by worrying for this, just being worried by these two, we should never give up our most important duty of renewing ourselves every day. That is most important. We have to update our capacity, we have to update our deeds, and next day when we go to office, we must go with a new mind. This is most important. We have to work to remove the evils and sufferings and for increasing the good and happiness of the world. Tasmin stushte jagat tushtam, prinite prinitam jagat. Atmavat sarva bhuteshu. These are all the words of great rishis of ancient India. When we want to see our own pleasure in the pleasure of all the people of my society, I am a yogi. So never separate your happiness from the happiness of the society. Even the modern psychology has said the failures of an individual in a society is because of three reasons: the conflict between rights and duties, the conflict between self-growth and societal growth, the conflict between our desires and what we achieved, between our desires and our achievement. So here, unless and until we increase the good and happiness of the world, we cannot have an increase in our individual good and individual happiness. That is what they said. Atmavat sarva bhuteshu. As we go on working, we will find that the world will continue to remain a mixture of good and bad, and a mixture of happiness and suffering. This is the greatest cream of life, the result of life. What is that? Our experience will teach us beyond doubt that world is always a mixture of good and evil, happiness and suffering. Then you may ask me, what is the purpose of working for this society? The 10th principle of work in Bhagavad Gita is like this. This is the final principle. Gita says, in our attempt to perfect the world, we will end up perfecting ourselves, which is the goal of life. Your work will define you, and you will define your nation. See, now Bhagavad Gita wants you to become a karma yogi. How to become a karma yogi? I gave you so much of information, so much of words of enlightened souls. Leo Tolstoy, Swami Vivekananda, Albert Einstein, Kautilya's Arthashastra, Bhagavad Gita. Ultimately, More and more, we inculcate the habit of at least going through scriptures, spiritual scriptures every day for a few minutes. We can keep our thinking in a very positive, healthy level. We can have more spirit to continue our work tomorrow. And at every point of time, any failure can never threaten us from doing good things. And this is ultimately, that is what Bhagavad Gita says, Uddhared Atmanatmanam. You are the maker of your own destiny. In continuation of the principle, we can say, you are the maker of your destiny. That is true. Ultimately, you represent your own country because you are not only an individual, you are an institution too. You are not just raw material, you are the finished good. You are not just human, you are the human resource. So, my dear friends, to keep this in mind, it's a great challenge before you. As Bhagavad Gita proclaims, Yadyadacharati Shreshtaha Tatta Devetaro Janaha Sayat Pramanam Kurute Lokas Tadanu Vartate. The elders in the institutions, in our families, in our societies, whatever they does, the younger generation will follow. Majority of the people of the society will follow without questioning, without asking, why is it so? Why is it due to? My dear friends, if at all, if we want to climb the post of elders in the society, the lawmakers, the rule makers, we must keep in our mind that the next generation, the younger generation will follow our own footsteps. So, yadyadacharati sheshtaha tatta devetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanu vartate. Loka, the world will follow the footsteps of the elderly people of the family and society. And thereby, it is making us to know that the elders of the society, they have the greatest responsibility on their shoulders because they are the torch bearers. They are the torch bearers for the generation. So, my dear friends, this is about the secret of work. More and more, we develop ourselves as yogis, karma yogis, I mean. Ultimately, we define our nation. Our work will define us, and we define our nation. And citizen, as I said in the beginning, citizen should not be only with respect to the parameter of age, it should be the measure of responsibility, the measure of the cultural fabric of an individual. I thank our chemical engineering department and our SIT management as a whole for extending me an invitation to be a part of this faculty development program. And I also feel very happy to share some of my thoughts with all of you. Once again, my pranams to most revered Shri 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 Siddhalinga Mahaswamiji for requesting me to be a part of this program and to deliver this lecture. My special thanks to the head and the subordinates of Chemical Engineering Department, especially Dr. Sudhir Hulikal, who is right now in the United States in connection with his research work, who extended me an invitation for this program. I thank one and all for me to be a part of this program. Thank you very much. Jai Ram Krishna.